All right, a mixed close on the U.S. stock markets today to end the day. The Dow was actually up 235 points. The Nasdaq ended in the red, and the S&P saw losses as well. This is interesting, though. CBS News MoneyWatch correspondent Kelly O'Grady joins me now. Kelly, what was driving the markets as we close out the week today? And it ended in positive territory.
Yeah, Dow S&P 500 ended in positive territory, though S&P 500 just ever so slightly 0.05%, but Nasdaq was over 150 points down. Look, there's two things really today that investors are focused on. One, the clear one, energy prices, oil prices with the war in Iran. Going into a weekend where you have a very bullish position in a market is a little bit tough when we know things can happen over the weekend, especially when it comes to attacks that we have seen. Remember, the war in Iran started over a weekend. The taking of Maduro in Venezuela happened on a weekend. And so investors are always a little wary. They don't want to be too much bullish on a particular position when things like that can happen. But oil did come a little bit back from its highs, but there's still just some concern about where things are going in terms of the tensions and then what that could translate to for prices, energy, and other here at home. The second thing is there was a bit of a pullback in the chip market. We had Intel report this week, and they had better than expected earnings, but then there were some concerns from investors that they may not be able to hit targets for 26 and 27. And you saw a bit of a pullback in other chip stocks as well. The way that I would think about this is it's called a sentiment flow. And we've seen this with the AI market in general. Sometimes everyone is buy, buy, buy when it comes to AI. And then every now and then you get a pullback because people are going, wow, everyone's spending too much money. Really, are these targets realistic? How is this all going to make money at some point? So that's the other piece that you saw that really was more focused in the NASDAQ. Remember, that's the tech heavy index. That chip sentiment outflow was predominantly in that index. So just a couple different things that we're factoring into today's stock market.
Yeah, there's a lot at play, Kelly. And President Trump is also doubling down on his trade war with new tariffs on dozens of different countries, accusing them of failing to crack down on forced labor. And now he wants to investigate the EU's trade practices. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Sure. So the first one, over 80 countries, it's going to be a 10 to 12.5% tariff for those labor practices, as you mentioned. Not a huge amount, right? Really, what was more concerning, if you go back a year and a half ago to what the White House was calling Liberation Day with all those tariffs, we were really concerned about the 100%, the 90%, the 50%, 10 to 12.5. Not that big of a deal. Certainly companies are going to have to pay that. Some of it will trickle down to the consumer, but not as bad as it could be. The EU one is really interesting because tech companies, Apple, Meta, the list goes on. The EU has a very different way of dealing with tech companies, fining tech companies, and there have been accusations, not just from the White House, but on both sides of the aisle, that the EU goes after American tech companies and doesn't allow that innovation, them to make money as easily as possible. And so the president has made this a piece of the deal that he has wanted to get done with the EU, saying, hey, you really need to stop coming after tech companies. The tech companies really like that, having the United States for the president standing up for them. But I'm just going to read you a slight bit of his True Social post. He said, the European Union is at it again and, as usual, taking direct aim at great American companies. Further on down, he says the United States of America is not a piggy bank for Europe, nor will we allow it to be. We're going to investigate the practice of, quote, robbing American companies. So again, nothing concrete in terms of tariffs. This is an investigation, but perhaps, Liz, also a negotiation tactic.
Kelly O'Grady, thanks so much.